I'm very proud to say that we were at the same publisher, with both having iconic editors. And that's a word greatly overused nowadays. Everything's iconic, but in this case it actually applies. I had Bob Loomis. Robert Loomis was Styron's schoolmate and edited Styron all the time. For those who don't know, Maya Angelou's only editor. And Bob was my editor. He had been from the time I did a book called Hitler's Children. I was very lucky to have him. He's a superb editor and helped to refine my craft of writing, make it more precise, and take out any of my opinion. He was really great on that. Norman was down the hallway with Jason Epstein. Bob and Jason were contemporaries. They were the old dinosaurs in Random House. They were the last people to use computers, even though Jason used to talk about e-books coming out. Bob was just learning to use a computer then. Joe Fox was the third. Joe Fox died during that time I was there. Norman had talked about doing an Oswald book for a long time. Then along came my book, which Random House, I went to Random House initially, the first time I went to them in '89, when I was moving from McGraw-Hill to Random House. I pitched a book about the Kennedy assassination. Wasn't going to say, I didn't have the chutzpah or craziness to think I could solve the case. I pitched a book that would be a lawyer's brief in some ways. Now here's where I thought the lawyer's part of my training would come in. All the theories couldn't be right. KGB couldn't have killed him if Castro killed him, if the CIA killed him, if the Mafia killed him. There had to be some that were wrong. Not all the witnesses could be right. Let me, as a writer, with a lawyer's hat on, go through all of the evidence and put out a book that's a primer that says, here's a review of the evidence. Here's the stuff that's absolutely false. Here are the 4 or 5 issues we can't answer. This is the book you have to read before you read anything else on the Kennedy assassination. And Bob Loomis said, I don't think anyone's going to be interested in that. So I went back to the grindstone and came up with Hitler's Children, interviews with sons and daughters of Nazi war criminals, which had sort of been inspired by dealing with Rolf Mengele back on my very first book. Then Oliver Stone did me the only favor he ever did in his life. He did JFK, the film. It became controversial. He re-energized the Kennedy assassination for everyone. And as a result, Random House said, maybe that Kennedy book will do all right. They signed it for very little money. It wasn't a big advance because they didn't expect it to reach any conclusion. In the middle of that research, 91, 92, I lived 4 blocks away at the time. We lived at 54th and 2nd. Random House was on 51st at that moment. They used to walk over there, no security, no pre-9/11, go up and see Bob. We spent afternoons talking about this, and one day we had a meeting with Harry Evans, who was the former editor of the Sunday Times, and really created a team of investigative reporters. He's legendary in England for having done that. The Insight team, they broke the thalidomide story, the DC-10 story, an amazing team. We'd given them months to go off and look at a story. Harry Evans is better known in America for being married to Tina Brown, the New Yorker and Vanity Fair and Talk magazine editor. But Harry was then running Random House. And I met with Harry, Bob, and several other editors, not Jason, and I said to them, my research so far in this book, I think we can actually say who killed Kennedy. And they said, who? Bob knew, the rest didn't. And I said, Oswald. And they said, and who else? And I said, and Oswald. And there was this moment of dejection, you could tell, in which they thought, oh my God, we hired him to do this book and he's read the Warren Commission and that's it. Then when they saw what was new, they got excited by it. And Harry, who's got a newsman's instincts, actually made that book happen. What I mean by that is, the 30th anniversary, the 13, 14 books, it could be checked how many were published. They were all conspiracy books. I was the only one that had the counter theory. We didn't appreciate then that saying it was Oswald alone was actually the most outrageous of the ideas. People just said, no, it's got to be, you must be kidding. But Harry sent a letter out to all the journalists from Charlie Rose down, saying, this is Harry Evans, you know me. I'm putting my reputation on the line. I think this book is right. And I believed it was the Mafia before, and I was a real conspiracy believer. The background of that is Case Closed was a success. It's on the New York Times list for 6 weeks. It was a finalist for the Pulitzer, and it changed Norman's book. What I mean by that is Norman, who was going to do this book, and Norman really believed it was a conspiracy. In his heart, he had felt that for a long time. Now had to do a different book. It wasn't that he was irritated. Case Closed isn't his book. It's not his style. I don't mean to say that. I'm not writing in the great style of Norm Mailer, but he had to do something different, and he did it because he has that great, he had a partner in Larry Schiller, who has done books on his own. Larry is the Forrest Gump of the non-investigative journalism business. He turns up everything. And Larry was the one who got Gilmore to talk on Executioner's Song, and he's the one who went back to the Soviet Union. I had been rebuffed by them to try to get any of the files on Oswald, and he got a deal with the Russians to open up all of the files about what he was doing there. They, meaning Norman Mailer and Larry Schiller, thought, my God, when we get into the surveillance files of Oswald in Russia, it's going to be a gold mine. He probably was we're going to have sex tapes, we're going to have things going on. They turned out to be pretty mundane. But still, Norman wrote a great book, Oswald's Tale, in which he grudgingly says sort of it's probably Oswald alone, even though a couple of times he indicates not.